Hey everyone and welcome. This is the Investor Academy. What am I saying? The Learn From Us. I basically screw that up every time. The Learn From Us Investor Academy podcast. Go to learnfromus.com. The website's being revamped. All of our awesome info is there as well. As always, I'm Seth Kirchanen. This is Paul Gabrail, the man. Paul, we're here back in our studio. Last couple weeks, we were in Mexico. And
was that a better studio than here, Seth?
It was a travel studio, so it was tougher.
Yes, but the views were better.
The views were better, so I brought the trees home with me with this shirt. Yeah. You and I connected this week, and I don't think we watch a lot of TV.
No.
Not so much together, cuddled up together with popcorn.
I've offered. You politely declined.
But I think one of us said to each other, hey, did you see this documentary on the Fyre Festival?
You said that to me.
Yeah, this is on Netflix. And
F-R-Y-E, for those who have not watched
no,
it.
I just said fry. It's Fyre.
Oh, Fyre, I'm sorry, Fyre, F-Y-R-E.
Yeah. So, the ridiculous spelling.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a documentary on Netflix. I love all documentaries specifically for the cinematography of it. Like some of the best filmmakers out there are doing these amazing documentaries. So that and the bikini-clad women drew me in.
Yeah.
It hooked me. And, of course, the trailer on Netflix starts with all the bikini models.
Of course.
But if you haven't seen it, it's worth 40 minutes of your time.
An hour and 40 minutes.
Is it that long?
It was that long, but it went very quick.
See? So there you go. The premise was, would you like to describe it?
No, you can. It doesn't matter to me.
So there's this guy, I don't know his last name, is Billy, kind of a schmuck that proves to be sort of a schmuck. But apparently he started this app called Fyre, F-Y-R-E, in 2017, and it was a way where normal people like us could connect with really famous people like you, and we could hire you for a birthday party. You could come over, make balloon animals, and do all the tricks you do, your magic tricks. But you could hire such celebrities as Paul Gabrail, Tim, Tim Peffer, or Ja Rule. And
I'd rather have Tim Peffer than Ja Rule. Just kidding. I love Ja Rule.
So anyway, this led to this guy making this special credit card for.
The credit card was first.
Yeah, the credit card was first.
Like in 2014 or something.
Okay,
15.
yeah. So he made what seemed like sort of a scammy credit card for millennials, where you paid a fee and you got this really exclusive credit card, and you got in this beautiful club, and then it turned out that they weren't getting the benefits they were trying to get out of it. So this is a very long story. The point of the documentary is this guy and Ja Rule drummed up a music festival. And they planned this obscene, amazing music festival in the Bahamas on an island where they're going to have all these musicians come down, like a Coachella-type setting, and it's going to be very exclusive. And they wanted 10,000 people to come in. The documentary keeps going about how once they started doing logistics, not only did they not have enough time or enough money, but it simply couldn't happen.
Well, and can I interrupt real quick?
Go ahead.
It was like a $4,000 per person ticket, plus all these extras of like alcohol. I mean, people were spending with travel $10,000 a person just to get there.
Yeah, and the first step of the festival was they promoted it with this long drawn out, basically like a trailer promo.
Of course.
That included all swimsuit models off of Instagram, and they were drinking and dancing and getting half naked on luxury yachts. And they all shared this. We probably need the same style of promotion.
We do,
soon, but they.
I'll call Kendall.
Yeah, they shared. So all these models shared all this to their gazillion followers, and this basically built the hype that talked them into like, well,
they
maybe
sold out in what, like?
Yeah, like a day.
Yeah, they sold out the entire festival in like a day.
And the documentary did a great job of basically interviewing everyone everyone all the way down to like the food workers.
Yeah,
and it started developing into something that did not take place. Spoiler alert. Well, that's the point of the trailer, right?
Yes.
They call it the greatest festival that never happened. But the point was this guy kept leading people, believing in himself to the point where he wouldn't listen to any criticism whatsoever. Like a day beforehand, bands are dropping out, celebrities and people are showing up. They were promised luxury villas, and they were given like
the Hurricane Andrew pods,
like little huts,
tents that were placed there, and mattresses that were absolute garbage and crap, and laying out and saying, go grab your mattress, go grab your.
So this was, it was beyond a complete train wreck. I'll let you, it was, obviously I'll let you finish the documentary if you're watching out there, but it was beyond, it was just phenomenal to see that how many people actually arrived to this train wreck and it is crazy. And so we both sort of connected with this of like, wow, how could that happen? And what did you initially say about all this when about this Billy guy, the ringleader?
So the thing that bothered me the most, and this is obviously an extreme situation, he was a fraudster, but his first business ended up being kind of scammy. And people were like, listen, this isn't a legitimate business. He leaves it and goes and starts this Fyre Festival. And everybody's like, he's a genius. He's one of the entrepreneurs of his time. He's one of the entrepreneurs of the decade. I'm like, but he hasn't accomplished anything. His first company failed in misery because it ended up being a scam. And now his second one hasn't even proven to be worthwhile or working. And I think he's in jail now. And I think some people still said he's a genius. And I'm like, hang on a second here. Like,
yeah, the documentary talked about how he was able to raise close to $35 million from investors.
Yeah.
But he actually only had $60,000.
Yeah.
And there were more things about his bank account, how he was rolling in. Yeah, so the fraudster was interesting. I'm wondering how many people are out there that are kind of, they're kind of like this maybe, right?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, forget about the Bernie Madoffs of the world. That's an extreme. These are all extremes, right? But I'm not saying it's kind of like this. It's the guy who goes and steals money from people versus the kid who steals a pack of baseball cards. It's both theft. Obviously, when I look at these frauds going on, it's a lot of image thing. It's the same thing I talk about with startups. I never hear startups brag about what they've created. They always brag about how much money they've raised. And to me, I'm like, it's not, if you create a good product, what does it matter? Yeah, you're going to raise good money, but it's always bragging about here's how much money we raised, because that's the big cool thing, as opposed to, hey, this is what this company is doing to change the world. Theranos, that was book.
Who is that?
Was it Theranos? Or I'm not thinking that whole...
From the Avengers?
No, Theranos is the blood sample company. The book Bad Blood.
You didn't laugh at that from the Avengers?
I'm not a superhero guy. I've never.
Everyone else.
I don't think I've ever seen. It's Thanos, isn't it Thanos?
Yeah, well, that's the point. Keep going.
I gotcha. For a second there, I had to realize maybe I am saying Thanos. She created this blood sample thing, and it was all fraud. And she raised $1 billion for this company that ended up going down the tubes. And she got secretaries of state and all these major CEOs on her side saying this girl's a genius, and she's a genius. She literally was a 21-year-old Stanford dropout. She's a genius, and nobody actually saw the stuff work. But she's a genius, and she raised $1 billion because she's saying all these things, as opposed to people just taking a step back and saying, how is this going to work? And people think I'm very conservative, but whenever somebody pitches me a deal, I first say, okay, show me how this is going to make money.
Conservative with your money.
It's not even conservative. Ask questions. I was pitched a deal a year and a half ago by a friend who said to me, Paul, my daughter and I are looking at investing in this real estate deal. Could you give us your opinion? And I saw the deal, and within a matter of minutes, I said, these assumptions are garbage. I said to them, how blunt do you want me to be? They said, be as blunt as you can. I wrote them a really long email. I said, guys, this deal could end up working out, but here's what needs to happen for it to work out. And the list of things I said were like, oh, that's not very likely. No, it's not very likely. But in an up market, those are more likely than in a down market. But my whole thing about everything in life is everything can work well if things are going your way. With the Fyre Festival, he had literally the one guy said in the thing, either this guy is the biggest liar of all time,
or genius, yeah,
or he's the biggest genius of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever that happens, you just gotta take a step back and go. And I know it's easy for us to look at it now and say, how many things in hindsight, Seth, do you go, oh, I wish I'd done that?
Sure.
But I remember once reading a book about Warren Buffett, and somebody said he's an SEC investigation waiting to happen because nobody believed his returns. Now he's to the test of time and things like that, but I look at the Fyre Festival, and it aggravates me because they hadn't booked an act.
Yeah.
At one point, they had to change islands. I'm not trying to give away too much here.
Yeah, They had promised that they were going to have this on one of Pablo Escobar's islands that he owned, and that they actually bought the island.
He claimed he bought the island.
Claimed he bought the island, and convinced all of the people who trusted him in his life that he had done all of these things.
Yep.
And just kept outwardly compulsive lying to the point where they all believed him. And then they figured out, well, 10,000 people can't go to the restroom or have water facilities on this remote island. So they basically switched it to the backyard of a sandals resort on a neighboring island. and that caused even more chaos.
But they still advertise it as an island.
Yeah.
Did you see that part?
Yeah. What? Yeah.
And I know we're giving away too much, and I guess we should probably, start by saying if anybody, I'm not trying to give away too much, but it's still an intriguing documentary, even if you know the whole story. Just seeing how people play it out and, how they're like partying. Like, I mean, and I look at the guy's face, and he never, even at the very end, when he was in trouble, he was still partying and smiling and laughing. Like, that's sociopath, behavior. You're sitting there saying, pal, you're going to jail. You are going to go to jail, and you're still laughing and joking and partying, right? Isn't that, that to me is
something wrong with this guy.
Yeah, and I look at that and I say, okay, is it him? Of course it's him, but it's also society of saying he put this image on of, hey, I've raised all this money, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I bought this island, as opposed to somebody saying, well, do you have it under control? I mean, simple questions that you should be able, that if you ask, will show it. It's funny because I talk about Bernie Madoff. If you ever know the Bernie Madoff story, there was one time the SEC asked for some sort of 4-digit code or 6-digit code for his transfer number, and he even said if they had just looked at the number, they'd have realized it was all fraud, and they never looked. And they never looked. I asked him for the number. He made up some gibberish number, and he was sitting there waiting. He's like, well, I'm done. And he was waiting and waiting and waiting. And I guess at his son's wedding, one of the SEC guys was there and said to him, hey, we got to talk. He's like, oh, here it goes. And he talked to him. He goes, just want to let you know you've passed. And he's just like, oh, thank you. And he just goes, these idiots, they just...
I've watched the documentary. Recap the Bernie Madoff story again. There was an HBO documentary about him a few years ago.
Yeah, I don't know if I watched that, but this is like a TV movie. But he always did verify this. So Bernie Madoff, biggest, Ponzi scheme of all time, $50 billion, $60 billion in lost money. He actually only had like $300 million at the end of the day. He burnt through all the money. And he was his own broker-dealer, and he was actually the head of the NASDAQ at one point. So basically, he would do the same thing that the he would fake computer reports, and he would write all the reports himself, tell people they had between 10 and 12%. They said he had an options strategy where he would make 10 or 12% per year, no matter if the market went up or down. He goes, in great years, I was 10 or 12%. In bad years, I was 10 or 12%. And he eventually was figured out to be a fraud and some guy sat there and took some Greek guy from the U.S., sat there and took his explanation and went to the SEC and this has to be a fraud. Because he sat there and said, in order for him to do what he says he's doing, there aren't enough options in the options market to even do that. Mm-hmm. So these things that whenever he talks about, these experts, Fyre Festival was backed by multimillionaires. They're smart guys. They're smart ladies. Yeah. Why aren't they catching this? Because people, doesn't matter how much money you have, you still fall for things. $1 billion was invested in that Theranos company. We're talking about Rupert Murdoch was somebody who invested in the very late stages. This is a guy who has tens of billions of dollars, and he invested in very late stages. Obviously, and again, it's easy for me to sit there and say that. Listen, I've invested in stuff before it went to zero because... it ended up being something that didn't work out. But one time it was a scam. I once got scammed out of $25,000, and it sucks. And you look at
when was this? What happened?
It was a guy. It was a friend of a friend.
Looking for investors?
Looking for an investor on something, and he ended up just spending the money on healthcare, and he fled to India, and that was that.
Wow.
Yeah, and it happens to all of us. But the same token, 25 grand is a lot different than 2.5 million or things like that. And because of that incident now, I'm glad I learned that $25,000 lesson, because that makes me now go, hey, if I don't trust the person, or I remember him saying one thing to me going, that's a weird statement. And unfortunately, I'm not trying to blame this person because I love this person. I was like, well, if they're friends with them, they got to be a legit person. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's how it works, as opposed to saying, but I've also caught scams before. There was a guy who did actually, his brother's in the building. He was
emailing you erectile dysfunction medication.
No, he was a prince in Nigeria.
Of course.
No, this other guy said to me, he wanted to do one of those garages.
Hold on a second. Okay, sorry. What were we talking about?
So I was talking about another scam that I figured out. A few years back, a friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, this guy wants to raise money for this high-end garage, like men's club, for like parking your car and stuff." And I've heard of this kind of concept before. So I met with him for lunch, and he's like, and I said, "What's your credentials?" "Oh, I'm an expert builder. I've built tons of things, etc." I said, "Okay, give me your pro forma," which is the numbers on how much it'll cost to build. So I said, "Okay, so what are your costs to build?" He's like, "Well, I don't know that yet." I go, "What do you mean you don't know that yet?" Well, I don't have it yet, but you just said you're an expert in building. It's like, yeah, but I don't have the final numbers. I'm like, give me a range. I really have no clue. And I was just like, well, that's kind of bad. So I said, okay, give me your pro forma on how the business operates. Well, I don't have that yet. And he was literally like, I had already taken money in. Well, he finally raised money from some suckers, and mid-construction, it was dead. The deal was dead mid-construction. Like, it's sitting empty right now in North Royalton. And I look at it going, I remember at one point asking him enough questions where he was trying to buy time by eating. And he was just like, can I just finish my food real quick? I know it sounds stupid, but I was like, oh man, I really have him backed into a corner where he's just like, I remember calling my friend and saying, this is a scam. This guy has no idea what he's doing.
I'm surprised he picked up the phone to even lie.
What do you mean?
You said you called him and he was trying to come up with excuses not to answer you.
Oh, no. I meant like in the meeting right then and there. He was like, so then I called my other friend who was a female. I was like, this is a scam. Run. I'm like, do not be involved with this. And she's like, well, I'm like, no, it is a scam. And he was basically all of the, and the other thing is, it wasn't really a scam. Maybe he genuinely just thought, no, this is going to work. I don't need to be accurate, but he had no information for me. And these things like that are the things that, when we talk about, some of the houses we do, we sat there and said, hey, we did a house and that Ramage deal, and we went over budget by $7,000, and here's why. But with those things, we have the places of work where this is why it's going to be going over budget. This is why we have extra room and things. And those are the things that bother me about asking simple questions and staying focused on the things that really matter. I'm not saying I would have figured out Fyre Festival at all. No, I'm not saying that at all. All I'm sitting there saying is I just don't like the idea that we buy into the hype more than we buy into the facts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the story is more exciting than the reality. There's always a thing about startups. I always tell people the second you make money, your startup's no longer exciting. Why? Because now you're based on exactly how much money you make. But beforehand, you're losing money hand over fist. Yeah, but look at the potential. The second you start making money, that's what you're worth.
Now, I'm not familiar with these startups. You always bring them up.
Yes.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Like these high-tech apps, and here's what we're doing, and everybody's the Uber of the. You even heard that at the Fyre Festival, like this is gonna be the Uber of blah blah. It's like,
right.
Enough with this. Like, guys, Uber loses money hand over fist every single quarter. It loses $1 billion. I don't want to hear the Uber of this, the Uber of that, and all they're bragging about.
How does Uber not make money? Boy, I'm switching topics. Don't even get into that. But I mean,
they spend too much money trying to grow. It could end up being okay, but there are no financials I've seen, and I'm not gonna see financials because it's privately held, but.
Now, recently the bank told you that you spend too much money.
Yeah. Paul, you invest too much in your business, therefore we won't give you a home loan.
So Paul's looking to break ground on a new house. He's a little cramped in his current one, so he's upgrading just a smidge. And I mean, your portfolio has to be. What's the number at when you talk about your total portfolio with all your businesses? Is
over $100 million.
$100 million. And so he indeed got turned down for a loan, like a redheaded stepchild.
And their reasoning was, you invest too much into your business consistently, we have to treat it like an expense. And when I say invest in my business, like buying a piece of real estate for $2 million, putting $2 million into it, and it's worth $7 million. And they're like, yeah, you shouldn't do that because it's so consistent. We have to treat it like an expense. And I'm like, okay, you guys just don't get it.
But you have a good relationship with the bank.
Exactly. And then I posted that on Facebook the other day, and somebody said, well, I'd work on being a better customer for your bank or something like that. I'm like, oh, here we go. I mean, it frustrates my banker, my private banker in Chicago. He gets very frustrated with it because he sees how ridiculous it is. I mean, anyways, the whole point is, bankers will ask these stupid asinine questions like that, but then when it comes to some idiot going, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a festival in the middle of the water. None of us have experience in this. What do you think? Well, I think we got to give you money then. I mean, I'm being facetious, but the whole point is, I find it's funny. I think it's funny that people don't question what they should question and question what they should not question. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This bank, how many times more money do I have sitting in cash in their account than a loan? And of course, somebody's gonna say, "Why don't you just pay cash?" Because I believe in debt, as we've talked about
Smart
before.
debt. Smart debt.
And my house is smart debt. Should I be further away or closer?
It's a little closer. There you go.
You want me closer?
Well, sometimes you're talking past it like this a little bit.
Past it? You hang there?
Did I just do that?
You did that.
Are you serious?
What does Dio get to go to Paul?
So I have our running joke is I have a little 5-year-old with like someone like a lisp, and he says knife and things like this, and And my older son, Gio's heavily into basketball, so we'll go to Paul's basketball court at his house. And my little one, they're like, why does Gio always have to get to go to Paul's house?
Oh, when do I get to go to Paul's house?
So, but the new house is going to have a better court. We'll be there. So I think we tried to tie this in because the Fyre Festival, you know, a lot of people are talking about the idea of doing nowadays. We want action over talk. Now, with that, the idea of Instagram showing a positive, you know, I never actually believed this until I really met some people in my life who show this positive image on Instagram and their life is not positive.
Of course.
And it's always sad to hear. It's even more shocking to hear when the boisterously proud and happy people aren't. And so, but one of these things that tie in was the idea of money and doing was I wouldn't say struggling with a budget, but I never really been considerate of a budget in my family, a family budget.
Why is that? You're very fortunate.
Yeah, so I told Paul, frankly, my wife and I would have most of our, not most, but a lot of our arguments that did occur would be centered around money. Who spent what, and that was when we didn't have we weren't making.
That was years ago.
Years ago, and then we luckily we moved into a point where we were both working consistently, and we didn't really worry about it as much. We were saving a massive amount of money. We were paying down any debt that we have, which frankly I wish we wouldn't have done, but in any case, our bank accounts were going up. Our long-term saving was going up. We had no debt, and so at that point, I think a financial advisor literally told me, like, if you're maxing out your IRA through, if you're maxing out your 401k through work, your Roth IRA outside of work. I was like, I think he literally said, like, you should probably just spend the rest of this money and go have fun. Like, after all that, you know, like when we were saving our kids for college, you know, we were saving monthly. So he's like, I think you're fine. I think you can at this point just spend this and go have fun.
All right.
So, okay, whatever. I mean, I was young, but yeah, so I never really sat down to figure out the ins and outs. And you described to me that, like, number one, I had to do this. I know it'd be tough. And then inevitably, people you help with this, well, I bring this up because you helped me. And this isn't about real estate.
No.
I'm not really investing. I guess I'm just sort of reinvesting.
But it leads to investing.
It can.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, you know, we basically ended up finding out that we spend about $6,000 as a family per month. That includes tuition for our children. That includes savings. Mm-hmm. Long-term savings. Our mortgage, you know, $1,700 a month mortgage. And I had this negative connotation about a budget that in the past, when Beth and I talked about the budget, it was, well, wait a minute, you bought this on this date? How dare you spend that money? And then she'd look at wait, you bought that? I told you not to do that, and you shouldn't be doing this as much. And that was our mindset. I was like, well, screw it. I'm not going to talk about this anymore. But what we did find out with this budget, lo and behold, is like we were paying for things that really weren't important to us and really weren't working. We were paying things in our business, advertising-wise, that really weren't working. And we got a grasp of what we pay on a yearly basis, and the whole studio is breaking down on us. We got a grasp on what we were doing, you know, per month. And in the end, just in the past 3 weeks, I have found out that out of that $6,000 to $7,000 that we put out every month, 2,000, we almost got rid of 2,000 of it. Without even trying.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, it really boggled my mind.
But my big comment to you was, and I remember, you know, do a budget. Okay, I'll do a budget. Hey, Seth, how did the budget go? Well, you know, we have the budget. I'm like, here we go. You know, and by the way, I hear this all the time. So I don't mean it as a criticism of you.
No, of course. I mean, it was a delay tactic because sitting down and figuring out, like printing out monthly statements we did the past 3 years.
Yeah, that's pretty thorough.
Yeah, trying to figure out what we spent per month. And we figured out per year, we almost spent, per year. I don't know if this number is outrageous. You know, comment below if I'm a complete ass clown. But we spend about $36,000 a year for our family just living life. Yeah. So we travel. We went to Disney last year. You know, we groceries. You know, $800 a month on groceries. Blah 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 blah. And we found out the last 2 years it was almost verbatim. 36,000 XXX was the last three was all that changed. So it was mind-boggling to see how consistent we are. But I just cut you off. What were you saying?
No, so the whole point of it was, I always tell people to do a budget, because I want them to be, the second you're cognizant of what you spend, I do a budget for myself. And I put my entire personal spending on QuickBooks. And every 2 or 3 days, I upload all my expenses. I put it in I treat myself like a business, profit and loss, how much money comes in, how much goes out. And now when you do that, you become more cognizant of, well, do I really need to spend this $200? And what did I tell you yesterday? When you told me, like, Paul, we found $2,000. I'm like, listen, that's great you find $2,000. I'm not trying to sound like your old financial planner. It's not just about being very tight. It's
That's
about,
what I told my wife. Keep going.
It's about spending, take that $2,000, maybe you take half of it, put it towards saving. The other half, you sit there and say, let's spend this $1,000 towards something we really, really care about, not towards bullshit that we don't care about. And we're like, for example, you and I talk about guitars a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe you sit there and say, hey, I want to buy a new guitar every 6 months because I really love music. Wouldn't you rather spend, $2,000 on a new guitar or $1,500 on a new guitar that you really care about as opposed to $2,000 on HBO, Cinemax, and all these other things, right? Like, that's the whole point of it. It's also about where do you spend money that really matters to you and where do you not spend money that matters to you?
Yeah, I think the idea of a budget has a connotation of being negative.
Yes.
Because budget means we need to rein everything back in, don't have fun in this world with our money. And for us, I wish we could redefine it, because for us, the budget was figure out what we're spending and then potentially reallocate it into savings that give us peace of mind. And I say savings for, that might be a whole podcast topic is, you don't have kids, but the idea of saving for college for kids, like what options might be out there. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't have kids. Well, maybe we'll bring Andrew on.
Is he out there?
He was out
in
there.
The audience, in the live. We are filmed in front of a live studio audience right now.
Our two fans got lucky tickets. One's Tim and one's Andrew.
That is Andrew back there. Yeah. So anyway, Andrew, Paul's partner Andrew will be on here.
Business partner.
Why do you? I know why you say that.
Yeah. We've always said that.
Yeah. So, wow.
Was that offensive? I'm sorry.
No, it's not offensive at all.
I mean,
people have asked if you have a partner in this world, and you have multiple business partners.
Yes.
And So anyway.
5 or 6, you call him your lover.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So the whole point about the budget, and Tim's very big on the budget. I'd love to have Tim talk about that, because Tim's always talked about how we used to spend. We had debt, and all of a sudden now we save a ton. We have no debt, and we live a great life. And I think their budget's a little extreme. When he tells me like some things, he's like, we spend $4 a month on food. I'm like,
Not 4.
whatever it is.
$4.
60 a week, actually.
60 a week for a family of 3.
Yeah, so I just said 800 for a family of 4, but it just hit me that I think when we started all of this, the Learn From Us Academy focused on real estate. The idea was, if you're a person that could have $25,000 to $30,000 extra a year and you have no idea what to do with it, which is currently me, and we're working together to start moving and making moves.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends, right? If you have $25,000 a year that you don't know what to do and might be sitting around, if we learn from Paul, Tim, from Andrew on real estate, how we can utilize that money, I just realized that $2,000 a month that I came up with
What's exactly that amount?
in my sleep, like
Without even making more money.
No,
Without even making more money.
Changing no money, just literally getting rid of things that we didn't actually use, removing some marketing dollars. I mean, it was just astonishing. And so, so I'm sort of baffled. But
how does it make you feel now that you're actually cognizant of what you spend on? I mean, do you feel like it's kind of like when I started working out and eating? Before I started working out and caring about it when I was 31, I didn't care what I ate. I really didn't pay attention. All of a sudden, I started working out, and to this day, every meal I have, even if it's a bad meal, I go, all right, well, I'm going to tailor it back a little bit. It's no different for budget. You buy something expensive, okay, well, let's make sure I don't do this again. Let's make sure I wait for a little bit. I mean, that's all it is. It's about we're going to do better on the things we really care about, right?
Yeah.
If we really care about something, we're going to operate it better. And that's all I talk about, when it comes to budgets. That's it. The budget has a very negative connotation. It's not about being negative. It's about sitting there and just being more efficient with your spending. That's it. I mean, that's even a lame way to say it, but the whole point is, I always tell, I've lived a nice life, but at the same token, I always tell people I buy all my clothes on sale except for my button-down shirts, because I get them made for me. And that's my give and take. Okay, I'll buy everything from Nordstrom Rack and off Fifth, at 60, 70% discount. I even go to the clearance section of Nordstrom Rack. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying it doesn't matter to me to go buy a pair of jeans that are the newest, hippest, coolest pair of jeans. I will buy whatever's on sale that I like because I will find something that I like. I'd rather buy a $200 pair of jeans for $60. That way I can have the money to go put towards the clothes, the shirt. Because it's not about just buying everything super expensive. It's also about just being smarter about your spending. That way when I want to go buy 2 guitars like I did, I'm not going to sit there and cry about it. I'm like, okay, well, that's just part of my... That's going to eat up 2 months of my miscellaneous spending. You know what I mean? That's the whole point.
Yeah. I think actually sitting down and making my budget was the B to Y, part of the B to Y steps. I would start before.
Yeah.
I would start step A and get run down by B. And the goal was to get at Z and be just sort of conscious of what it was. And
why did you stop before? Because I noticed it, and I didn't want to press, but I noticed that. I'd be like, how's that budget going? Like, well, I have it in my head, and you said that or something like that. I was like, nobody has their budget in their head.
Why did I stop? Well, because like I said, it had just led to some arguments in the past beforehand. It had just led to like.
So it was just like it's like a PTSD.
It was just all a
negative.
negative. It was just all negative. It was just like we have to, And then now, I mean, it takes a long time. My wife been married for 15 years, 15 years. I mean, some of these people, if you're, you might have been married for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like I learn new stuff about my wife every day. And it's like, I mean, I'm sure everyone does, but I mean, it's like, it took us to get to this point to be on the same page about this budget. And it comes in, obviously kids are very difficult, when you have the kids and you want them in private schools, which we might be transitioning, away from private to public. Because we want to send them to maybe more wonderful high school, that could cost a ton of money. So I don't know, man. I was talking to somebody last night, and I guess I thought like when I was a kid growing up was going to be just like, how they show in the movies, like drinking sweet tea on the front porch and just watching the sunset. And it's like I catch one Netflix documentary a month if I'm lucky before I go to bed, and I pay for it the next day because I stay up too late. And so it's tough, man. I mean, I'm not even going to claim it's tough if there's tons of people out there working their asses off for
less money,
a lot less money.
Of course.
So I'm pretty lucky in my tough. Tough is relative, but
of course.
But yeah, with the kids, I mean, I told you about this last night. I'm trying to explain to my kids the idea of like, my parents never told me the house that we stay in. I have to leave this house, go make the money, and then take that money and hand it to some Bank of America digitally. Like that has to happen. And so it can't just all be Chuck E. Cheese and birthday parties. And I never thought, it took me a long time to even figure that out.
When did you figure that out?
I don't know.
Was it when you got in the real world or was it before?
No, my mom to this day, I think, is still paying for some of my college student loan. She took some, I took some, and she just never told me.
Really?
Yeah, she just never told me. I mean, I took some. She took some, and she just, I found out 10 years later she was still paying on my college, but that's the type of giving person she is.
Yeah, she's very generous.
Yeah, and that's what I want to pass on to my kids, so. Yeah. So I brought up real estate to a buddy, and he said, why do you need that, I said, well, it's like Paul has opened up my eyes to not only budgeting and allocating my funds and maybe doing something awesome with it, but he's opened up my eyes to the idea of having a Mexican villa is not that far-fetched.
Yeah.
I don't know how, I can't believe I'm saying that. But we went down, and your neighbor bought his house, steal of a deal, $825.
Yeah.
Like, I live in a $300,000 house. I have friends in $600,000 houses. $825 for that mansion
on the water,
on the cliffs, 300 feet above the Pacific,
with staff.
Doesn't seem that ridiculous. It's like it's not like some huge pipe dream, And so my one buddy says, "Well, do you want that?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know, but the point is, I never thought it was possible."
Right.
And so,
and by the way, that's the thing about having money and being financially secure is about. If you ask somebody who has money, they say, what's the best part of it? It's just having options. It's not about like buying stuff. It is. We like, it's nice, but the whole point is you buy stuff to give yourself more options. You know what I mean? It's not about, oh, I'm going to go buy this, this, and this. It's about, okay, if I don't want to do that, I cannot do that. Yeah. As opposed to, I have to go do this because I need to go pay my mortgage and this and that and the other. As opposed to, I don't want to do that. Why? Well, because it's not worth it my time to do it, so I'm just not going to do it.
So I think, folks, if you want to get into real estate, you're also going to learn from us, quote unquote.
Yep.
not so much me.
Well, they can learn from you.
But you're gonna learn some of these ideas about how to allocate your money. I mean, Paul started this because for years we were all telling you, man, you always have a take on things in this world, and sometimes it's right or wrong in someone else's mind, but it's interesting to hear about. So if you want to hear, so guys, first of all, we want to thank you if you've made it this far into the podcast. We need all the likes, comments, and subscribes you can give us on YouTube. Continue to follow us. We're going to keep doing 2 podcasts a week, Tim has planned. So we're churning them out for you. Again, we're constantly just trying to open up Paul's mind on camera so you can hear what he thinks and how he's gotten here.
That's right.
We are doing more of what we call the deal of the weeks.
Love them.
I think these are incredible, guys.
Yeah.
If you're looking to get into real estate and you're like me, the point of me being here is not to be the handsome co-host. It's working though, but frankly, is to be that outside voice to say, Paul, what the hell are you talking about, and how does this apply to a normal person like me? And the deal of the weeks allows us to have Andrew bring a real deal in this world that could be obtainable to someone like yourself once you get in the game, and hear these two talk about it and about the assistance and help they're going to give you about analyzing the good and bad deals. Because Paul, it's just amazing to see. I don't even know if we told this story, but on the way home from Mexico, in the airport at Guadalajara, you and Andrew were going back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
On a $12.5 million deal.
And you commented. I told everybody the story about what you said
And
afterwards.
you just like, okay, listen, 11.5, here's the text. 11.5, cash, no financing, April 1st, send it. And Andrew says, okay, great. I'm just like, wait, hold on.
And what'd you say?
I was like, don't you guys need to consult with someone or
And I laughed. I said, who do you want me to consult with? You're like, I don't know, someone. I go,
wait, I said, shouldn't the board know about this?
I'm like, who's the board? And I look at Andrew and go, Andrew, is this a good offer? Yeah, it sounds good. All right, I consulted. We're done here.
Yeah, I think you called your brother Mikey, who's an important player in this business. It's just like, yeah, I think we just put in $11 million. And he said, okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So.
And by the way, I'm not trying to we're not trying to sit there and flaunt it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
We're going to have investors, but the whole point is we're confident enough with our deal, with our knowledge of real estate, that Andrew can put numbers in front of me. We both come up with numbers separately. They were very similar, and he gave me some information that said, hey, somebody offered this price cash, this price finance. And I was like, well, we'll get the investors. Let's go offer this price cash. Now, keep in mind, guys, the caveat is, when you said, did you consult with anybody? We have a lot of due diligence left, even if the offer is accepted. It's not like it's just a done deal. We've got to go do a lot of due diligence. Sure. It's a lot easier to make an offer. But at the same point, when we gave that number, I'm very confident, barring some major thing that the other side lied about, we'd be okay with that number. The biggest thing for us is worrying about the other side, what they withhold from us. But we don't look at that as I remember the first deal I did 300 hours of work, and it was $2.8 million, and I think I lost $1 million on it at the end of the day. You know what I mean? It got part of the portfolio if you watch our webinar, but this deal was 11.5, and I can't guarantee. I can say with very high confidence that we do not lose money on that deal at all. So that's the funny part.
So that was our little deal of the week spiel.
Don't you want to consult with somebody?
Yeah. Don't you?
Who?
You can talk to the board or somebody. We're sitting in an airport with bad Wi-Fi. So, yeah, we're going to do more deal of the weeks. We're going to do a deal of the week very soon, and there'll be more coming out. Paul and our last major argument was over a deal of the week. Poker dealing.
Oh, that's right.
Right, Andrew? Yeah.
Our first and last.
So,
I'm like, what deal of the week was that?
When you do...
How'd you do that week in poker, Seth?
When you do work with Paul, be mindful that, and I've said this 1,000 times in our personal lives, that he will analyze your sentences
it's a problem I
more
have.
than you do on the way out.
It's a problem I have. Everybody says that to me. It says, Paul, why do you take every single thing?
Can I make a comment? 6 months ago. 6 months ago.
You texted me at 4:37 a.m.
that you were going to do this, and now you're taking a break.
And then do this with Seth. If you ever ask Seth for something, he'll tell you, this time works perfectly for me. And wait till he confirms it 8 more times before it actually works perfectly for him.
Yeah, so Paul doesn't have a secretary, and I do because I don't even know what day it is. So, all right, guys, great. Basically, we were just babbling. We hear that people want longer podcasts, so we just tried to stretch this one out a smidge.
What is that?
It's at 40 minutes.
Oh, my God, you're welcome.
So you're welcome. So join us again, guys. We love all the positive feedback, and we're gonna keep rolling. Thank you, Paul,
rolling.
for
Thank
being
you, Seth.
awesome.
Likewise.
See you soon. Love you.
Bye.